You are listening to the Millionaire Architect Podcast with Matt Ganzak.
Welcome back to the Millionaire Architect Podcast. My name is Matt Ganzak, and I am your host. Today, we are talking about working with your significant other. We received this question: how is it like working together? I believe the question was actually addressed to Sachi, and it wasn't even addressed to me. What's it like working with Matt all day? And she's like, frustrating. Because I guess I am frustrating. Because I have a certain way and a certain structure and a certain way that everything is done, right? And it really even started back with just getting started dating. And when she came over, and we had just been dating maybe a couple of months at that point, that I was writing my first book, and she would come over, and I hadn't slept in like over a day. And she's like, what are you doing? You're insane. I'm like, I need to get this done, right? So when she saw that dedication to getting a project done and that, absolute 100% all in dedication, she realized that at that point, she told me later, not at that time she told me, because it was like later on, hey, the reason why I'm really wanting to go forward is you treat me really well and you have an absolute dedication to what it is that you make a commitment to. And for that, I believe that you're going to make a huge commitment to, our family and your health, and you're going to take care of me until the end of time. So she saw that early on, and she saw that inside of, what I was doing. So coming off of that, I was like, all right, fantastic. We're going really well. Let me take you. My friend was getting married in New York City. Well, technically he was getting married in Connecticut, but we made it a couple-week trip up to New York and to the wedding. I said, I'm going to take you with me. If you can survive 2 weeks with me in New York City, you can survive with me forever. So we went up, and it was amazing. Like we did really well traveling and so forth. And I was very impressed with the way that she did everything. So at that point in time, she was working as a paralegal for a lawyer here in town. And she wasn't really happy with doing that work, but she worked really hard, right? She worked really hard for what she was doing. And on the other side, I was like, all right, we did really well. Let's do another trip together. And I booked and planned and surprised her a trip to Italy. And that was last year that we went. And we spent over 2 weeks in Italy, and we traveled around. We saw a lot of Italy. And what I saw during that trip was absolutely incredible. I saw something that I'd never seen in any other human being ever before. And it was such attention to detail and such caring to me and to us and our family, and a small family at that time, and our extended families, but such attention to detail. And everything was just so focused and so, meticulous and so forth. So when we got back from Italy last year, I asked her, first question was, I asked her to get married. That was the first question. And she said yes. And the second question that I asked her was, will you come and work with us full time? Will you come and be full time working for the company? And she said yes to that as well. So she's been working for the company well over a year now. And we work full time together. And I see her meticulousness in every single thing that we do. And what I look for in both the significant other and in when I hire for staff is I look for areas of their strengths. I don't necessarily look at weaknesses and how I can fix the weaknesses. I look more at the strengths and how those strengths can help better us to forward, make more money, grow the business, grow what it is that we're doing. So I focus more on strengths and less on weaknesses. And it's something that I've always done in hiring. And this company and what I do now isn't the first time that I've hired. I was in charge of people when I was 21 years old. So that was whatever year it was, 2003, 2004. I was in charge of 20 some odd people and in charge of production for 17 radio stations back then. So I managed people and I managed at strengths, and I would have to look at, scripts, and a script is like recording for radio. I would have to look at the advertisement, and then I'd have to match the personalities with the advertisement, understanding people's strengths and weaknesses. I was 21 years old when I started doing that. Then I started learning more and more and more, learning from my mentors and learning from the people that I was working with. Then I started managing a group of graphic designers and managing the processes of managing multi-million-dollar ad campaigns, and helping to grow a massive company back then, and then growing from there to start this company and so on and so forth. So what I do is I look for strengths. I look for strengths in people. I don't look for weaknesses in people and try to change them, because I don't believe in changing people. I believe in working inside of people's strengths and helping to bring those strengths out and apply those to help the company make money. I believe 100% in that. Now, yeah, there is a time and place to work on our weaknesses, and you can do things like getaways and team building events and things like that. But 99% of the time, you have to focus on the strengths of people and not necessarily on the weaknesses. So I took out all of the strengths that Sachi had, right? I took all those strengths out, and then I interweave them into our business. So like, say this is our company and these gaps are our issues. So I'm just holding out my hand if you're just listening. And then we interweave those with the other hand. And what that becomes is a stronger unit. So what we do is we find the gaps in the business, and then we feed that with that other person's strengths. That's how you're supposed to hire. That's how you're supposed to. I've read a lot, so many books. There's a wall of books here. I've read all of them. And inside of these books, what I've taken away from it is focus on people's strengths, not on their weaknesses. Yes, you can spend maybe 1% or maybe 2% of your time out of the year focusing on trying to develop weaknesses, but I focus more on strengths, right? So if your strength is attention to detail, right? I'm going to make sure that I give you things that need to be extremely detail oriented. Now, if your strength is doing things really fast, I'm going to have you do things really fast that need to get done fast, but I'm not going to expect you to get that thing done and then have it be absolutely perfect, because listen, I understand it's not going to be perfect because your strength is not making things perfect. I have a couple guys on our team, and they'll admit it, they're terrible at grammar. They're terrible at, putting things together the right way. They overlook things. That's cool. They're probably listening to music while they're doing graphics and putting things together. That's fine with me. Typos are fine with me. I am okay with typos. But what I need somebody to be meticulous who is not fine with typos. Somebody that looks at it and says, there's something wrong here. I'm going to find it and I'm going to fix it, and I can project manage to make sure that's done. That's where Sachi fits in. So I look at her as the meticulous, the one that looks over things meticulously, makes sure they get done meticulously, and then I add that into what it is that she does. Then what I do is I look at other strengths that people have, right? So she has amazing strengths and a visual for design, not really graphic design, but a visual for design. So she is starting to take over to do our video editing because she loves it. She loves doing video editing, right? She loves doing these things. She's taking over doing video editing. She loves it. So what I look for is interests and talents, and you try to match those interests and talents together to create somebody that's very productive as part of the overall goal. See, on the other hand, what I've seen in the past, I've seen, husband and wife working together. I've worked with husband and wife's teams, and I've seen the husband or the wife, I'm not being sexist at all. Like, I've seen it both ways. I've seen the wife take over and just run the business, and I've also seen the husband take over and just run the business. And then it causes friction inside of the home and inside of the business, and you see it. And it's just apparent. It's just oozing. Like, you're just like, this is not good. But what you need to do is, instead of stepping on each other's toes, you have to separate out each person's strengths and then delegate what each person is responsible for doing. Understanding I'm terrible at a lot of things. I'm not good at everything I do, but I've built an amazing team around me, and I have an amazing spouse and amazing support and amazing family that I'm able to get the things done that need to get done. Without that support, without that family, without all those things, nothing would get done, right? So you have to build your support team around you. So if you and your spouse are, at constant battle, maybe it's not the best that you guys work together. But if you have different areas where you're good, where your spouse is lacking, maybe you can fill in some of those spaces, but vice versa, you're able to bring on other people. It doesn't necessarily even have to be your spouse, but family members as well, who can fill some of those voids that you have inside of yourself and inside of the business. And you fill voids with people and strengths. You don't take people and try to turn them into what you need them to be. You find the problems and then you solve the problems with the people and their strengths. So I can tell you we fit so well and we work so well together because we were able to find the weaknesses in the company, identify them, work through them, and then have her apply herself into those weaknesses in the company. So yeah, that's it. Like that is how it is like working together. So, if you're considering, working full time with your spouse, I would say take a look at strengths and weaknesses, write them down in a chart, like separate it, one side, your strengths, one side, your weaknesses, and then do the same thing on the next sheet. Your spouse's strengths, your spouse's weaknesses, have them help you with that. So that doesn't cause a fight in there. Like have them tell you the strengths and weaknesses and talk about it openly. And then as you work together to mend this family or mend this business or whatever it is that you're deciding to do, as you decide to mend that together, I definitely recommend taking a look at the strengths and weaknesses and seeing where those responsibilities and the weaknesses of the company can be filled with the other person and vice versa. Because listen, at the end, a single solo entrepreneur is never going to achieve the goals if they're setting the bar really high. If you're setting the bar really high, there's absolutely no way that you as a single person is ever going to achieve that. You're going to have an amazing team around you. You're going to have an amazing family around you. You're going to have an amazing spouse around you. If one of those things is missing, you might need to work on one of them. Not saying that I'm giving you relationship advice right now, because I'm not doing that. But all I'm saying is that at the end of the day, life is really short and there's a lot of people out there that can fit into the areas of our life to make that connection. And I had to make some cuts in my life, but finally I get to the point that I find the right person that fits in those places and isn't trying to change me to force me into being whatever that was. And I'm not that person. I am who I am. And I have somebody now that accepts me for who I am. And that is my person for the rest of the life. That's my human. So that's my human forever. So it's fantastic when you're able to work with your spouse and able to be so effective at working with your spouse. But on the other side, if you're not, don't do it. Just don't. Don't try to force it. Don't try to force the thing. We work so well together because I have a lot of weaknesses. Like I can't read legal documents. I start reading them and my eyes start glazing over. She specializes in reading and creating legal documents. So, I mean, that in itself is one of the most important positions in the company, right? Being able to create legal documents. So from that standpoint, I encourage you and anyone listening to this to find what your strengths are, find what your weaknesses are, and then help find people to add into those weaknesses. If it is your spouse, have your spouse take over. If it's somebody else, have that somebody else take over. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. This is the Millionaire Architect Show, and it is brought to you by My Credits. If you have not checked out My Credits yet, go to mycredits.io and check that out. Amazing software. I built it. It's absolutely incredible. So guys, have an awesome one. We'll see you right here on the Millionaire Architect Show.
You are listening to the Millionaire Architect Podcast with Matt Ganzak, brought to you by My Credits. My Credits. Reward your loyal customers for watching your videos and engaging with your business. Your customers will love you for it.